Trail running, the name Ryan Sanders invariably comes up. The South African runner holds the fastest known times on the Drakensberg Grand Traverse and the Great Himalaya Trail. At the age of 42, Ryan is still going strong, and he joins us now via Zoom. Ryan, a very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and really great to be chatting. Thanks for having me.
I think you have been exposed to a little bit of sun. Have you been climbing any mountains lately?
Yes, I was out on a long run this morning. So I spent, I think it was 4.5 hours outside. So probably got a little bit too much sun this weekend. But still really loving it and enjoying being out in the mountains.
Let's talk about that. I mean, ultra-trail running, what exactly is it, and what got you into this different sport, if I can call it that?
Yeah, I guess I got into trail running by mistake. I guess the best way to explain, basically, my final year at university, I had a bunch of friends that were running the Knysna half marathon, and I decided to join them. Being a student, I entered pretty late, so actually the half marathon entries had closed. So the only entries that were open were still it was only for the full marathon. So I thought half marathon, full marathon, like same, being naive and a student. So entered the Knysna marathon and absolutely loved it. And living in Cape Town, very quickly started running on the slopes of Table Mountain, and that's where the trail running bug bit. And I guess the best way to describe trail running is, it's all running that's off of the road. So it's a lot of running in the mountains and running on trails, off-road, tracks. I've done races in the Amazon jungle, in some of the 4 major deserts, running in the Alps and all around the world. So I guess it's anything that's kind of off of the road.
Well, I mean, how different is it? Is it about the thrill of running on the mountains and climbing all these dangerous terrains, if I can put it that way, instead of just running 90 kilometers from Pietermaritzburg to Durban?
Geez, I think running 90 kilometers on the road is too hard for me. I always find like after 15, 20 Ks on the road, it's kind of very hard on my legs. But I really just love the trails, the unknown, and kind of constantly having challenges, whether it's to kind of get up to the top of a mountain or cross the desert when it's really hot. There's just so many external elements. And also, I think I've been lucky enough to run on all 7 continents, and it's just incredibly beautiful, running in places like Antarctica or kind of on top of the Alps or kind of in the Rocky Mountains. So I've really got to experience some incredible places. And at the same time, I think that the trail running community, the various communities around the world, are just so special, and it's something that's just been really amazing to be a part of, and to be a part of the sport and just see how it's grown over the past 10 or 15 years.
How dangerous is it? Or is it any dangerous, running up the Alps in some unknown terrains?
For sure. I mean, I think like being on the mountains, anything can happen. But I think it's with anything in life. I mean, you can take on challenges that are more risky than others. But I mean, if you don't want to take on any major risks, then I don't think, trail running is definitely not a dangerous sport if you plan properly. And I mean, if you're going out into the mountains, taking warm weather gear, taking enough food and water, letting someone know that you're out on the mountains in case you don't come back letting people know, or let someone know that you're kind of heading out onto the mountain, and give them an estimated time when you plan to be back, and at least if you don't come back, someone knows where you are. So I mean, it's just taking the right precautions, but I definitely don't think it's dangerous. Obviously, I've run into a lot of snakes and bears, etc. But shame. I think they've always been more scared of me than kind of than me of them.
Well, I like how you just mentioned running into a bear so easily. But anyway, so you've listed a whole list of accolades, such as being the first to win all 4 races in the Desert Series. But what would you say has been your biggest achievement so far?
Biggest achievement, I think winning the Western States 100 miler in 2017 was a big one for me. And then as you mentioned, I think that one of the things that I've loved about trail running is that, for sure, I've run a lot of races, and there's you're racing competition in the races, but I also love the adventure of trail running and just kind of going out there and pushing my limits, like my physical and mental limits. So crossing the Himalayas with my friend Reno, we ran the Great Himalaya Trail. That's definitely a highlight for me. And then 2 years ago, we also circumnavigated Lesotho on foot, which again was a highlight. I mean, I just felt there was a lot that went into that project, and we had an incredible support team that helped us get it done.
And I'm glad you mentioned the support team. How important is it to have that good support, especially if you're going to circumnavigate Lesotho, where you're going to run 1,100 kilometers on some strange terrain? How important is that teamwork and the support that you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. I know a lot of people say like trail running, it's kind of an individual sport, but I've been very lucky to have an incredible team around me, whether it's people kind of like coaches helping me with training, strength coaches, also kind of getting regular liner therapy, having someone doing chiro on me and massages, and then also just like someone like my wife Vanessa, who's been out to a lot of my races to help support and crew me, and Reno, who I did the circumnavigate Lesotho project with. He's also paced me at a number of races and helped crew as well. So I mean, yeah, I'm just incredibly fortunate to have an awesome support crew, and then also some incredible partners along the way. I always call them dream givers, because I definitely wouldn't have been able to do or to achieve what I have without having those dream givers and partners.
At the age of 42, one would argue that you've almost done it all. Is there a peak, an area, a run that you still look at and say, I need to achieve that?
Yeah, there's the Ultra-Trail Mont-Blanc, which is around the Mont-Blanc mountain range, a 100-mile race, which I'm going to be racing this year. I mean, I'd still love to get a good result there. And there's a race like in the US, the Hard Rock 100, which is extremely difficult to get into, even as an elite. I'd love to go and run that. I mean, I've won the Western States 100-miler and the Leadville 100-miler, so the one kind of remaining is the Hard Rock 100. And then again, just kind of there definitely a couple of projects that I would love to do still. I've got a couple of ideas and concepts I'd love to do around Africa. I mean, I think I've been lucky to run all around the world, but I'm just really really intrigued by exploring more of my home continent.
You spoke about the sport growing in South Africa. I mean, where do you see that? And also looking at the fact that South Africa's got a very good weather to a certain extent, which one would say suits ultra running. But how would you say the sport is growing, if in any way?
Yeah, again, like as I mentioned, that the sport has really kind of bloomed over the last 10 to 15 years, and it's been amazing to see the same happen in South Africa. I think when I first started, there was like 2 or 3 trail races, and now every weekend there's a trail race, and it's great to see a lot more people getting into the sport, and I think from all backgrounds. And I think you like said, what kind of goals do I still have left in the sport? And for me, like one of my main goals is to help grow the sport and give more people the opportunity in South Africa to do the sport, and also to be able to travel as an elite trail runner, to travel the world and to race the world's best. I mean, I think in South Africa, obviously being so far away from Europe or the US, we sometimes don't have the opportunities to get to those countries. So yeah, I'm really passionate, and I'd love to see more of the South African trail runners take on the world's best and show them how it's done.
And finally then, Ryan, what would you say is your biggest challenge, if anything, especially when you talk about participating in overseas races and so on? Would something like finance be a big challenge in that regard?
For sure, I think, I've been lucky, as I mentioned, to have some amazing dream givers along the way, and that have really kind of helped me and enabled me to travel around the world. And the nice thing with the sport growing so much now, there's definitely a lot more investment in the sport and giving a lot more people those opportunities. But I think in South Africa, still it would be great to see more investment in the sport, as it is an expensive sport if kind of young and up-and-coming trail runners want to go and travel to Europe or the US and compete there, because the conditions are very different there. We've got great training conditions there, but when it comes to kind of the sharp end of the racing and elite racing, you need to be very specific to the conditions, and the Europe and American conditions are quite different. So yeah, it would be great. But people like Live to Run are doing some incredible work with in the trail running scene, and yeah, I think we've got a very exciting future.
Right, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for taking time to speak to us. That is ultra-trail runner Ryan Sanders, just talking to us about his journey so far and some of the challenges that he had to face.